Whether you want to play Feral or are just looking for info on what class to play, this video will give you an idea of what to expect from the golden age of Feral that was missed of Pandaria. Do note that this video is not meant to serve as a full guide, but rather a preview of what to expect in the next expansion. Feral is one of the MoP specs that I've played the most over the years, and so I'm aiming to release a full guide post-expansion launch once I have some more data, so stay tuned for that. If you're interested in keeping up to date with the latest theory crafting throughout the expansion, I also recommend you join the classic Druid Discord, link in the description below. But for now, I am just excited to bring you up to speed with this amazing spec. Feral Druid in Cataclysm was focused on keeping good uptime on our Savage Roar, Rip, and Rake, and weaving in Thorns, Feral Charges, and Bear form during rotational downtime. In MoP, the main sources of our damage are Rip and Rake, and so focus on maintaining not only good uptime as in Cata, but also snapshotting strong buffs from spells and trinkets is what separates a great Feral player from the rest. This shift in damage is primarily due to 4 significant changes coming with MoP. Firstly, Savage Roar no longer increases auto-attack damage, but now once again increases all physical damage dealt in cat form. The second is a new talent called Symbiosis that turns our Healing Touch into a 30% damage buff for our next 2 melee abilities, and makes Predatory Swiftness procs important not to waste. In MoP, the philosophy of Trinkets also changes quite heavily with the introduction of RPPM Trinkets, which first appear in Throne of Thunder, the second tier of the expansion. These Trinkets are the successor to internal cooldown Trinkets, and have effectively random proc timings with some bad luck protection to avoid unlucky streaks. For agility users, all of these Trinkets feature high power procs with short durations approximately once per minute. Together, these 3 changes make it so that our bleeds can be cast significantly stronger relative to our other abilities than was possible in Cata. Finally, our Execute receives a significant boost with Rip refreshes from casting Ferocious Bite on targets below 25% health, no longer updating the snapshot of Rip, and allowing us to keep hugely buffed Rips for the remainder of the fight. While weaving in Thorns and Feral Charges is no longer going to be a thing, that isn't to say that Bear form weaving during rotational downtime will have gone, but we'll have to wait for theory crafting before we can actually see if this is going to be a thing or not. Regarding Trinkets, throughout your MoP adventures, one spec-defining trinket rises head and shoulders above the rest: the Rune of Re-Origination. This beast of a trinket drops from Lei Shen, one of the last bosses in Throne of Thunder, and will remain Bis all the way through to the end of the expansion. Luckily for us, this trinket is almost exclusively a Feral trinket, as we are pretty much the only agility spec that makes good use of it by forcing the proc into Mastery. Our Mastery is a great stat on its own due to increasing our already strong bleed damage, and is tuned to provide quite a large benefit to those spells, as it only affects a portion of our damage. As such, snapshotting Mastery procs provides a Mastery bonus for the full duration of those bleeds, resulting in large power spikes. And boy does this trinket deliver big Mastery procs. When reforged properly, this trinket sets your haste and crit rating to 0 and converts double that amount into Mastery, resulting in a whopping 32k Mastery proc in tier 15 and 52k Mastery proc in tier 16 Bis. Along with Rune, our preferred second trinkets have stacking agility procs that pack a punch themselves. Renataki's Soul Charm and Ticking Ebon Detonator are your go-to for tier 15 and tier 16 respectively. Renataki's has everything we could dream of for Feral, with a proc that stacks over 10 seconds, reaching maximum power on the last stack, and allowing us a short duration to play around it when it does proc. TED works the opposite way, however, starting at maximum stacks and quickly ticking down, which makes it much harder in RNG to play around, despite the increase in secondary stats making the rotation a lot smoother in tier 16. Harems provides an excellent alternative with a static agility proc that results in simpler and more consistent gameplay for tier 16, while performing only slightly worse based on Simcraft data. Talents in MoP are completely revamped, offering a choice between 3 talents every 15 levels. At level 15, we have a choice between movement talents, though do note that Displace the Beast is on the global cooldown. This row is situational, though Wild Charge does help gap close quite efficiently on a short cooldown, especially on pull. Level 30 brings us a choice of healing related talents. Most will opt for the passive throughput of Ysera's gift, but the other 2 can be situationally useful, though keep in mind that Cenarion is also on the GCD, which makes it annoying in a lot of situations. Level 45 is the CT tier and is situational, though Typhoon is generally a good choice. The level 60 row is a damage tier and offers a choice between increased energy regeneration through Soul of the Forest, a stronger burst damage window through Incarnation, or even more snapshot gameplay with Force of Nature. Generally, Soul of the Forest is the easiest to play and smooths out the rotation early on. However, Force of Nature has historically been the higher DPS talent for those who are able to comfortably play the base rotation. We'll have to wait and see what comes out of theory crafting to get an updated take on these 2 talents at various gear levels. Incarnation is generally PvP focused and not really used in PvE. At 75 we have another situational CC row, of which you can pick pretty much whatever you like. Finally, the 90 talent row is a mixed DPS healing tier. One of the 90 talents is Dream of Cenarius, which I touched upon earlier and is what we will be running almost exclusively as Feral. Heart of the Wild is an interesting one that allows us to gain benefits of the other Druid specs. However, outside of niche situations where we may be stuck out of melee or can cheese Vengeance, this has historically been a DPS loss to pick. I do rate it quite highly for too long, where outputting large amounts of healing into the boss is an effective DPS gain, but generally don't find it to be worth the cost for other fights just for stronger tranquilities. Nature's Vigil falls somewhere between these two in terms of use cases and is generally worse than either option. Symbiosis is the fancy new Druid spell of the expansion. We can cast it on another non-Druid player to gain access to one of that class's spells while giving them a Druid spell in return. A few standout performers as Feral are access to additional defensives through Paladin Bubble and Priest Dispersion, target swapping spells through Soul Swap from Warlocks and Redirect from Rogues, as well as DPS increases in Shattering Throw from Warriors and Ghost Wolf from Shamans. Giving Symbiosis to any tank also gives them some form of Druid defensive cooldown and might be your assignment on certain fights with heavy tank damage. If you're interested in the rest of the interactions, you can check the link in the description below. Swipe now generates combo points, which is also a nice quality of life improvement and allows us to AoE without sacrificing as much of our single target damage as we did in Kata. We also gain access to a few other spells this expansion, notably being able to thrash in cap form, though this has a large energy cost and doesn't generate combo points, and will primarily use this to dump excess energy for a decently powerful bleed. You'll also no longer need a glyph to extend rip, as this functionality is now baked into the baseline spell. We still have access to our existing defensive cooldowns, Survival Instincts, and Barkskin, but we gain a third with Might of Ursok, which will occasionally be useful, even though it puts us in bear form and falls off when switching forms. For MoP, classes have only 3 major and 3 minor glyph slots, which are predominantly focused towards utility, with a lot less glyphs providing damage increases. Glyph of Savagery is our main damage increasing glyph that we will pretty much always run. This is due to Savage Roar increasing our bleed damage, and so we'll always want it to be up before applying any bleeds, and this glyph allows you to have Savage Roar up on the pull, as well as helping to mitigate awkward moments in the rotation. Our 2 remaining glyph slots will usually be filled with Glyph of Shred and Glyph of Cap form. Glyph of Shred can provide a DPS increase in certain situations, and is mostly useful in the opener where the boss tends to move around a lot and we're spamming Shred due to Berserk. However, it's easily replaceable because of the reduced power of Shred relative to Mangle and MoP. Glyph of Cap form is the go-to for the final slot, making us even tankier, but the following glyphs can all be situationally useful either defensively or for raid utility in either of these 2 slots. Together, these changes make for a very tanky and fun DPS spec that when played well excels at single target damage throughout the expansion, eventually becoming strong on 2 target cleave and providing some nice burst AoE damage with Berserk. Lining up all your procs on Execute will lead to moments that no other specs have matched for me in 20 years of playing WoW.
Oh, huge snapshot, boys! Big damage, come on. This is it, boys. Dude, if this snapshot, I don't think it's going to. I think it's too... Kill time's too slow, dude. It was 35%. The Shaman nerf's coming in hot, boys. Oh no! I believe. Oh, we did it!
That said, the spec is quite punishing when making mistakes, the fallout of which you'll often feel for the next 30 seconds, and sometimes even the rest of the pull. Feral is also not amazing at target swapping, though this is somewhat alleviated by Symbiosis, and we're not great at all at dealing with low health adds. That about wraps it up for this overview. As always, if you have any questions, the best way is to catch me live on my Twitch streams or join Discord linked in the description. They'll also be responding to comments posted below. I'm aiming to produce more content like this before the official launch, focusing primarily on MoP PvE, so subscribe if you'd like to be notified of future content, and thanks to those of you that made it to the end of the video.